And welcome back to my channel. This is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And we are going to continue that little double feature with Aileen Wuornos, American Boogie Woman, or as it was retitled for post-domestic release, Aileen Wuornos, American Psycho. Now, this movie was released in 2021, along with the Ted Bundy one. It stars Peyton List, Tobin Bell, Mr. Saw himself, Lydia Hearst, and yeah, I absolutely loved this movie. I really did. I liked this movie. As I said before, this movie was written and directed by Daniel Farrands, starring Peyton List, Tobin Bell, and Lydia Hearst. Same guy who did The Haunting of Sharon Tate. This movie takes place in, it's like 1974. This movie is like, it took a little slice of her history. And that was the about 9 weeks that she was married to Commander Louis Fell. And very little is known about it, so he was able to dramatize it very well. And yeah, so this movie opens with classic film clips of evil sirens from the classic movies, you know, like Barbara Stanwyck in Double Indemnity, you know, stuff like that. Talking about women being beasts. So we hear a voiceover of Aileen talking about how she always wanted to be famous and stuff like that. So we are then introduced to not Peyton List, but another one was playing her right before her execution. And it's a final interview with a guy before her execution, and he wants to know what she's got to say. And she's like, yeah, y'all just want to hear stories. You just want to hear something. So I'll tell you one then. So she starts telling this particular slice of her life. Now, it is in DeLand, Florida, July the 4th, 1976. She is getting banged in a truck. She's a hooker. So she's getting banged in a truck, and this guy, wants to kiss her on the mouth, and she like, no, I don't do that. He tries to do it anyway, and she puts some teeth down his throat. Girl didn't play, as I think people found that out. But, so that pissed him off, but she gets out of the truck and runs after she clocked him and put teeth down his throat. And that's where she runs across this little group of friends. She didn't know it, but she had walked into a private beach. So she had walked into a private beach, and there was this girl and her boyfriend and a couple of other guys and a couple of other girls. And they actually, she's like, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your party. Because they're watching the fireworks and stuff. And they're like, no, that's cool. Come sit down and join us and all that. Well, this guy, Grady, he bullies her, which didn't get him very far because she ends up clocking him too. Turns out, though, that he's a bully to everybody, and the other people there were actually kind of glad she did it. So they befriended her. And that's where we met Jill. Is that her name? Jill? Where's her name? Jennifer. I knew it was a J. So, that's where we will meet Jennifer and her friends. Jennifer actually, really takes a shine to her, likes her, invites her back to her place. Rich, fancy mansion type deal on the water. And she spends the night there. The next day, after she offers her the place to stay, they smoke weed, and she falls asleep, and Aileen sleeps on the floor, tells her about her brother Keith and childhood in Michigan. And the next day, she's kind of roaming around the house where she runs into Jennifer's dad, and that would be Louis Fell. So she makes a good impression on him. He actually, Jennifer's mother has recently died, and actually Aileen makes him laugh for the first time that she has seen since his mother's died. So, they hit it off pretty well, and she does start, like immediately after that, after seeing the way her father reacts to Aileen, she immediately is kind of like a little put off, but she ignores it, which is something you should never do. She ends up taking her shopping, and denies that she is doing anything suspicious, but Jennifer convinces her to stick around because, she doesn't want to. She's like suspicious of Jennifer and these people. So Jennifer's like, no, we're not. I really like you. I really want you to stay around. So she does convince her to stick around. And then one day her and her boyfriend walk in and find her and Lewis banging away in the bed like this old man. And, because Aileen was really young. This is like 1976. It's not 2015 when lots of people are used to seeing Aileen Wuornos. So, she ends up catching them having sex, and then bam, bam, boom, we're at the wedding day, right? And nobody is happy. There's nobody happy but Aileen and Lewis. You know what I mean? All of his friends are looking at it like trash, looking at Aileen like trash. Everybody is looking at her like trash. So now that they're married, everyone you can tell is pretty disgusted. Jennifer moves out into the pool house. She's definitely not happy about the marriage. But it doesn't take long before Aileen begins going out to the bars to party, and that's where she runs across this bar called The Last Resort, which, anybody listening to this video, if you're a true crime person and you know this story, then you'll know a lot of this and what it means. But she ends up discovering The Last Resort, which is the bar she hung out in, was actually the bar in which she got arrested in when they finally arrested her. Decade later. But, so she's going out, and there's a really cool scene, where she does booze and coke with this guy. But he, of course, wants more than to party, which, was something they said about Aileen, was that, because there's always been, this is a very debatable situation. I know a lot of people don't, but in the true crime circles, Aileen Wuornos is one of those rarities in which there's a lot of debate. And I think that the director played into a lot of that debate because she really didn't do anything. She really was trying to this dude offered her some coke and booze. She just thought she was partying with the dude. Next thing you know, he's trying to rape her out there, right? She ends up stabbing him in the leg and beats his ass. She gets arrested, and that's when a lot of the rage begins. Lewis is a bit pissed off. They make up, and Jennifer's boyfriend tries to talk her into being nicer to Aileen. And she actually agrees, tries to take her out shopping again, but, you don't really know her motives. Is she trying to just spy on Aileen more, or what? They even invite, her and Lewis are going out on the sailing on his big fancy yacht. And Jennifer and her boyfriend agree to come. Now, once again, Aileen is attacked by that Grady guy down there with all of them up there on deck. She manages to get out of that. And Jennifer walks in on it. And I think this is what kind of makes Jennifer go, the first time I met this bitch, she is being attacked. And now here he is, this asshole's attacking her again. And she's like, maybe I've misjudged her, right? So she does try to make up with her, kind of apologizes, wants to take her shopping. But that doesn't go well either, because as you can imagine, the stores that she takes Aileen to are the very rich, fancy Dallas and Dynasty and Flamingo Road type places, you know what I mean? So, her behavior, she's of course looked at like trash. You can imagine, she's looked at like trash. And she throws a fit in one of the stores, really embarrasses Jennifer. And then which I can't understand her point of view, you know, because she like accuses Jennifer of like, you took me, you already know that I'm around all these rich people now. I'm poor white trash from Michigan. I've never, you know, I mean, she don't know the real story about what she is, but it's like, she basically admits, you know, I'm homeless person, street person, and yet you take me to this rich, fancy shopping. So she believes that Jennifer set her up, that Jennifer did this intentionally to humiliate her because of these stuck-up women who are going to look at her like trash, and her accent and the way she's talking and stuff. And I understand that. There's a lot in this movie, you know, where you do like, she's a crazy bitch, but at the same time, you know, if you know her story, I think she was put on a lot. This monster was made, is what I'm saying. And I think this movie definitely shows a lot of that. So she believes that she was set up, being bullied by the rich lady. Grady, or somebody seems to be following her in a car. At first I thought it was Grady, you know, that was following her, is going to get even with her. Jennifer later catches her stealing a check from Lewis out of his checkbook. Aileen catches her catching her. And Aileen is just like, lets it slide, you know. I mean, you could tell Jennifer thought she was might fixing to get punched or something, but she didn't. And you'll find out why in a minute. And that is because Jennifer the next day goes to his friend, the CPA, Grady's daddy, and tells him what she saw. And is like, I want this bitch gone, and I want this trash, you know what I mean? I want to know who the hell she is, and she's stealing from my dad and all that. And then Grady informs her that they're married, and your dad has already had you removed as executor of his stuff, you know. So technically she's not doing anything illegal. And then you're like, oh, well, that's the reason why when Aileen caught Jennifer catching her stealing, she didn't give a shit. And that is probably because she knew that she wasn't doing anything technically illegal. So she couldn't get any trouble for it. So the CPA guy, he explains all of this to her, but then again, he's been busy himself, and that is he pulls out a file on. He's been having private investigators, so he drops the bomb and he tells Jennifer about who and what she really is. She's a prostitute. She's been in prison over and over for soliciting. You know, so yeah, he lays the dirt out. He then goes and tries, you know, and he tells her, just let me take care of it. So he goes and tries to pay her off, you know, at their rich mansion. He goes and offers her $10,000 in cash to leave town. They have an ugly fight at that point because, you know, she's like, my husband is worth millions of dollars, and he's fucking 72 years old. I don't have to wait too long to cash in that ching. And you want to give me $10,000? Oh, well, I'll tell him all this ugly stuff about you. He loves me. He won't believe you. So they end up having like this big knockdown drag. He throws her across the desk. That man tries to strangle her, tries to kill her, tries to strangle her to death. She manages to reach back there in Lewis's drawer in his desk, pull out a fucking gun, and she shoots him in the side. Now, this, of course, is not really true. But, so she shoots him, and he's dead. And then Grady comes in, and she fills that motherfucker full of holes. I mean, she's just like, She makes him look like a spaghetti strainer after she's through shooting him so many times. And you, of course, are like going, I know this is Aileen Wuornos, but that dick deserved it, if you want to know the truth. So she shoots him. Grady comes in. She shoots him to death. Now, the interviewer, we flash back to the day before the execution interview. And the interviewer does say, Aileen, I'm going to have to call bullshit because there is no record of this person disappearing and his son or anything like that. You know, and then she of course, like, you know, no bodies were ever found of these people that you're talking about. So he accuses her of just like making up a story, and she's like, you want to hear the story or not? You know, so Aileen receives a note and pics of her disposing of those two bodies. She goes to the motel that was listed on the note, and there we are introduced to her dying brother Keith. That's also true in real life. Her brother Keith did die of cancer. Not like this, though. He died up there in Michigan, not in a Florida motel. But, which is what the interviewer tells her in a minute. So she goes to the motel to meet him. He starts talking about their childhood, about how he wants some of the money and their sexual abuse and the stuff they were made to do. Now, that part's all true. And then she ends up killing him, suffocating him, and shooting him. Now, the interviewer, you know, we flash back to the interviewer, and the interviewer's like, your brother Keith died in Michigan of esophageal cancer. That's all true. All of that's true. But he wasn't found dead in a motel room in Florida. You know what I mean? He died in a hospital in Michigan. Now, if you know anything about Aileen Wuornos, those last couple of years, she was always about the conspiracy stuff. You know, signals into her head from the jail and stuff like that. So she brings that up and is like, that's just the story they're telling. That's the story they're spinning. I'm telling you the truth, you know. And he's like, okay, if this is the way you want to spend your last interview, go ahead. So, that's when we flash back, of course, and Jennifer and her boyfriend start suspecting that she's there in DeLand for a different reason. And they end up finding her mother working at a restaurant. And now, I don't know if that part's true. I don't know if her mother... I mean, I saw an interview with her mom, her real mom, that abandoned her when she was a baby. Or she was like 9 or something. So I don't know if she really owned a restaurant or anything. But interestingly enough, the woman that played her did look a lot like her. And the stuff that they said was true. The stuff that the mom said was true in the movie. So Jennifer finds this, you know, woman and talks to her, and they kind of tell her about the childhood and why she left and all of this kind of stuff. Now, we go back, and now fucking Aileen has just lost it, you know. She tells them about Eileen's birth and life, and Mom says that, you know, her lies about her past is what makes her so dangerous and stuff like that. And then we see Aileen confront Lewis and vice versa when he found out about the money being gone. And he's going to call the cops and all that kind of shit. She beats him with his cane. That part is also true. That's why their marriage only lasted for 9 weeks. And then he divorced her because she was like beating him with a cane and shit for allowance money. So, so after this confrontation, she beats him with his cane. Jennifer comes in and finds Lewis and ends up in a big confrontation. She follows them out to the pool house where she ends up having a fight with Jennifer, knocks her into the pool, drowns Jennifer, at least you think. She's drowned Jennifer, and she gets out of the pool and runs to get on his yacht and tries to escape that way. But Jennifer isn't dead. She gets out of the pool, chases her. And then her and Lewis confront Aileen at the yacht, where Aileen is then knocked overboard. I mean, she starts to shoot Jennifer, but Lewis ends up swinging the mast and knocking Aileen into the water, and boom, she disappeared. So we then flash back to the interviewer, who calls bullshit again. And, Eileen's like, whatever. And you go back to the story, which is Aileen goes back to hooking and moves on to the real story. Is taken out of the room screaming the last words that she spoke before her execution which, I mean, if you know Aileen Wuornos' last words were that stuff about, I'll be back, like Independence Day with the big mothership and all, coming back with Jesus on the, the movie ends with her being dragged out of that interview room screaming the actual last words that Aileen Wuornos said about the big mothership and everything. And then she was executed, and then we have an end montage of all kind of real photos, sort of like the Ted Bundy one ended. Real photos of the victims, real photos of Aileen, the family, and all that kind of stuff. Even a picture of the real Aileen and the real Lewis on the yacht during that 9 weeks that they were married. So, yeah. Now, to the movie itself. I actually loved the way that this movie was filmed, because that little slice, that little 9-week slice of Aileen Wuornos' story was turned into this double episode of Dallas or Dynasty. It was even filmed like a nighttime soap opera. And because that particular part is so soap opera-like, the trashy girl moves in, marries the rich husband, the daughter don't like it, all that kind of stuff. Now, like I said, any references to real-life events were kept correct. And, there's a couple of documentaries, 2 of them. The one the guy originally made, The Selling of a Serial Killer, and then the follow-up, which was in other words, that was the real interviewer who interviewed her right before her execution in that last interview. I love both of those documentaries, and it does leave an awful lot of questions. This movie, like I said, it's just her being interviewed the day before her death, but the entire movie is just those 9 weeks with the Lewis fell, and I loved it. It was a really good story. And even though, the Fell family would not say a lot about what went on during those 9 weeks, so it's all fictionalized, mainly because of them not telling, right? So it gave him the room to make up this fictionalized story of it. But what was interesting about it was that all of this fictionalized 9-week story stayed really true to Aileen Wuornos' personality. Now, Peyton List, who plays this young Aileen, she did an absolutely fantastic job, man. She walked like her, she talked like her, she carried herself like her, and she bled this attitude that anyone who has deep dived the story knows that Aileen acted and behaved that way. So I think that really kept me in the movie, was knowing so much about Aileen Wuornos. To have this girl, Peyton List, playing the part so well, because you expected every bit of that to be exactly the way Aileen would have acted had this been real. And who knows, aside from the bodies she claimed to have killed, and aside from her brother being, her murdering her own brother, aside from those 3 issues, as far as the interpersonal relationships between the daughter and her and Lewis, and this whole little drama of her trying to steal the money, the CPA guy probably trying to run her out of town. All of that could very well be true, you know, because that Fell family won't say nothing about it. But yeah, I think this one was a lot better than the Ted Bundy one, although, you know, this is an 8 out of 10 to me. The Ted Bundy one's a 7 out of 10. I had a great time with this. I loved the Ted Bundy one. It's a great movie. 7 out of 10 is a good score. 8 out of 10 is a great score. So that film was good. This one was great. If you're into true crime, if you know anything about these two stories, you should really enjoy these two movies, because you can certainly, you say people who do know these stories, we're able to see immediately the real facts and the fictionalized parts. And that makes it, you know, it doesn't frustrate you or upset you, because you're not being lied to. It's very, very clear what's fictionalized and what is not. And, yeah. So this is Aileen Wuornos, American Psycho. And like I said, the movie takes place during the 9 weeks she was married to Louis Fell. I think he did a great job taking that little 9-week section and turning it into this really dramatic, bloody, murderous movie that was sort of like what was to come from her, you know. And I think it explains a lot. I think it just works. It just really works, especially to anybody that knows her story. So yeah. But if you don't know anything about Ted Bundy or Aileen Wuornos, you can still watch both of these movies and just look at them as some kind of fictional movie if you want to. Because as just a plain old horror movie, they're both really good. They're both really good, even if you don't know anything about them. So that was Aileen Wuornos, American Boogie Woman, aka American Psycho. And I will see you in the next thing I do. Love you, miss you, bye-bye. Always remember, never forget, you are a very, very special person. DNA proves it. And I will see you next. Bye.